Hello guys, so welcome back. Today we are going to add more features to our application. So let me log in. We come to the users section. As you can see here, we have the users section and we can add a user, we can edit, we can delete them. But what if we have many users? And because they're going to be vertical all through, and it's going to be a long time to scroll through a list of 1,000 users or that system. So to solve that, I'm going to add a paginator section here so that it can show the number of pages available, and I'm also going to add a search here so that the user can be searched for easy access. So let's do that now. Because the first thing to do is we have to come here to the utils, and I need to add a new function that can be able to get users by pagination. So I'm just going to call it maybe get users paginator. And what this function is going to do, it's going to get the user, split them, of course depending on the page size that we define. So let's do that now. Get users, paginated. Also we have to define the page, because remember it's being splitting them depending on the page size, and the limits, the page limit of course. And then we're also going to supply the window so that we can maybe display information to the users. And then we're just going to add something, a progress bar, so that will be updating once it has finished one section. It can update the progress, and of course finally you're going to return a list of users. So model.users. Okay, first thing we have to do is to define our collection. You can just copy this. Then the next I'm going to define various options that can be used in MongoDB, like setting sort, setting skip, and the limit. So we have to calculate the skip. Calculate the skip, we're just going to basically take the page, of course the page that we defined, then we minus 1, then we multiply by the limit. Then we're going to define a list of options. You can just call it find options. Because I'm using Mongo. Is that find, and then I'm going to set the various options. I'm first start by setting the sort, setting the skip, and finally setting the limit. Now when you're setting the sort, we need to come back to the models and see the options that we have. In most cases you can add a created at section here so that the latest it can be sorted by the latest user. So in my case I'm just going to maybe use username for simplicity, and we can maybe change it later. The next thing I'm going to set the skip. Now skip accepts an int 64, as you can see here, int 64, and we have to set the skip to this one. Now this one is initialized as an integer, so we have to convert it to an int 64, and easily do that by just passing it that way. And then finally I'm going to set the limit. Set limit also accepts an int 64, so I have to convert limit to int 64 because it's currently initialized as an integer. I'm going to define users. because it's an array. We're going to fill it after processing the users. And just come back here, this function here. You can just copy this one. Just do this window. So we are grabbing the data from the, of course we have to find all. That's why this filter is empty. It's going to grab all, and then if there's an error, we're going to display it, and then we have to defer closing this cursor until the function finishes running. Then we're going to process them all. Okay. And then now we have to handle the updating of the progress, so that after we upload the a given number of users, we just keep on updating it. After a single one is uploaded, we update the progress. I'm just going to set up account so that it will be updated for easier tracking. Since I'm processing a single user after the other, I have to initialize it here, and then I decode them. Yes, there's an error, we can just show it. Continue. Then finally we can append the users to the users we've initially defined up there. We append the use that we have processed here. And then after doing this, we're going to update the count. And then finally, we have to update the progress if it's not null. Avoid errors in the other side. If it's going to be nil, then it's going to cause errors. And now update progress. Okay, what am I missing here? And then finally, after updating the progress dynamically, and now return the, you have to ensure that the cursor has no error. dialog. Then because remember the cursor is very important in this case, so I have to ensure that it's not 0. Then finally we can return the list of users. Okay, so this function, what it does, it looks for the total list of users, and then it splits them depending on the page size. Those are the limits. These ones are what they're doing. They are setting the limit. Okay, then it splits them based on the page. The number of pages, of course, are going to be calculated in the front end. So let's now implement them in the front end. So let's implement it. So going back to the views. Now the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to grab this. I'm going to make it global, of course, within this file. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I have to define the page size. Okay, page size. And initialize it to 1 because currently we have only three users. So to make sure that this pagination is working, we can just use it. You can just say page size is 1. Then we define various variables. Now since we're going to add the pagination and also a search, I'm going to define various variables that are going to be using. Of course, we have the current page, total users. Of course, total users is extremely important to us. And then the page label, like if it's 1 out of 5 pages, we also need that one. We have the next and previous button. We have search results. Okay, of course, this now since we have a search, we cannot just grab the paginated only. We have to also modify our load users function so that it can be able to also capture search, because the view is going to be the same. Current page, because it's 1. Total users, this one will calculate it. We also need to implement its function because we don't have it. Initialize to 0. Buttons, previous button, next button, of course there are buttons, repeat button. Then we have the search results. Because these ones are going to be changing, that's why we have to initialize them. Because they're going to change depending on what the users inputted, searched. So we have the search entry. Because it's an entry. Then we have no result label, so that if there are no users, we can display this no result label. And then if the user has searched for something that's not available in the DB, you can also display that widget label. Okay, so we have initialized these various component. We have current page, total users, vegetable, previous and nay, search results, no results, and so on. Now our load users function has to change. So I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to get rid of this load users. Okay, now we have to define our own load users here. So just say load users function, going to be a function, of course, and the function is going to accept the page. Okay, going to accept the page. Now since in our utils we have defined a progress, we need to also define it in the users so that you can be able to show the progress. And a progress bar, and then the initial value, of course, is going to be 0, and then we have to define a dialog that can show the progress. Of course, just use a new custom. So it's supposed to be a dialog, new custom. Let's say loading users. The next one is dismiss. You can just say cancel. And then the content is going to be the progress. Then the parent window is going to be window. That's the project progress dialog. Then progress dialog. You can show it. Okay. Now here's where the trick comes in. Now this load users, it of course initially it will load the users from the DB and it calculates the number of users it will display per page. But then when somebody searches, it should be able to update the same view. Okay, so we need to handle the search cases, need to handle the cancel cases, and so on. So in this case, when we search these users, this list of users, it has to be updated. Okay, and when we are not searching, we eliminate the search, these users, the view should also be updated. So we have to handle such cases. So we're going to use a go function for this so that it can be done in the background. Go routine, I mean go function. So if the text, the search text entry is not empty, then we have to equate it to the search results. Otherwise, if it's empty, we're going to load it from the DB. We're just going to say if search entry text is not equal to nil, not nil, empty. Okay, then we're going to say the users is equals to search results. Then we have to do the total users equals to int 64 length users. Okay, else we're going to grab the users from the DB. So we're going to say utils get users paginated, and then we're going to pass in the page size, I mean no page, going to pass in the page limit, which is going to be the page size, because it's 1. The window, this should be the first one. Then the progress, which is going to be function. Then we can just say progress value. It's going to be a float, of course. Then now we can say progress set value to progress value, so that these values progress value. Okay, and then now we have the total users, but for the total users, now we have to get a function. We have to add a new function here that can be used to calculate the total users. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to say just func count users. I'm going to supply the window, find that window, and of course going to return an int 64. Okay, because the first thing we're gonna need is collection. I'm just going to copy it from here. Then we're going to count them. So we're going to return the error. We have the collection, count documents. It's going to be empty because you're counting all the users. Then you can handle the error case. Otherwise, we're going to return that show error. And if everything works out well, just going to return. I'm going to come back here and calculate the total users. Put it to utils.count users. Then we pass in the window. Okay, so we have the users and the total users. Now we have handle users and the total users. Okay. Now, after we have done this, handle the case of search, and now come down here and refresh the user list. User list. Refresh, because it has to. This user list here has to reflect. Here we have to refresh it because we have updated the users, and remember it's using users as its main data source. Okay, so we have to refresh it. Then we also have to get the total pages so that it can be enabled, so that if there is no previous page, the previous button should be disabled. Okay, we can just call, say, total pages, because it's an integer. Now, one thing I want it to be, it's that when the number of users has changed, we need to be tracking this. That's why the total users and the page size is very important. Not if you're displaying 1, 2, 10, 100, they'll be updated, and the label, the page labels will be also updated. Okay, so also need to capture that. Also, we're going to use string formatting, and you can say page of. Okay, so we're going to get the current page, the total pages. Okay, the total pages, we have to get the total users divided by the page size to get the total number of pages. Then we also have the current page, which is saying it's initially 1. Now, after we have updated the total pages and the page label, we also need to handle the case of no result label, because no result label can only be visible if the length of users is 0. Okay, so we're just going to say if users, no, length of users equals to 0, I'm going to say no result label show. That's when it's visible. Otherwise, we're going to hide it. I'm going to hide it. Then we're going to come down and previous button, disabling them initially, like the next button also it's going to be disabled like initially. But if the current page is greater than 1, okay, the previous button is going to be enabled. Okay, another case, especially for the next button, if the current page is less than the total pages, okay, so that means there are more pages ahead. Yeah, so I'm going to say if the current page is less than total pages. So what this means is that is we have more data. It's going to be enabled. Okay, then initially, then the next thing we're going to progress, because once we are done here, of course will be the progress should be done. Then we hide the dialog. Okay, so that's our load users function. Now let's come down here to the now. Load users. Okay, so we have the update user label. So here we're just going to say load users, and then we are passing the page. That's going to be the current page. Okay, then one thing, I have to define another function here to update the no result label. So I can just call it update no result label, so that after we update load the users, should update the no result label, otherwise it won't update. Okay, function, then we're going to just use the same logic here. So I can make this a global function to avoid retyping it. Now let it just be. So update user list, you can update the no result label after loading the user. Okay, so basically the users are currently updated. Now what we have to do here, we have to come down here to user, of course, need to add our paginator and our search. So below the user list here, I'm going to define my pagination. Okay, define my pagination, because it's going to be a horizontal box. The previous button, the next button, it should be horizontally. I'm just going to say pagination is going to be a container new. Okay, then I'm going to say prev button is going to be a widget. New button, it's just going to call it prev, the function, of course. Then if current page greater than 1, plus whatever find above, then we're going to say current page into minus, and then we're going to update the user list. If it's greater than 1, and the current page is going to be subtracted, and then we update that one. This is the same logic that we've defined above for the, this is going to be next, and then In this case, now we have to calculate the total users, so on. So I'm just going to come back here. Then I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this. It's going to do some little changes. So mark.size total users, then divided by page size, of course, multiplied by the current page. Then in this case, the current page, I'm going to add it. Then we're going to update the user list again. Then the next thing we're going to deal with the page label. Pagination page labels. So I'm just going to say page label, and remember page label, I already told this whereby it's displaying this one out of this one and so on. I think we have already defined it somewhere here. Format spring, current page. Yes, okay, it's just a similar thing. Okay, widget new label. Also doing string formatting whereby you're combining then just normal text with numbers. You can say page of. Okay, so we're just going to get the current page, and then we're going to grab this. Okay. Okay, so we have the users divided by the page size. Because this one is going to return the total pages. Okay, total pages. And then after defining the page label, I'm just going to add it. So pagination, add if button, pagination, but add the label at the center, of course. Then pagination, add the next button. Okay, then we center it at the center of the page. So pagination, let's say container new center, then we add pagination. Now we have to display this pagination. We have to add it to our view. We have to add it to our view. So I'm going to come here to the list container because we are displaying the title and the user list. Okay, add user container. I have to display it because it's supposed to be at the bottom. So I'm just going to add a list wrapper here. Going to add a list wrapper here so that you can be able to combine various components. I'm just going to say container, new border, and then at the top I want to have the add user button container. Okay, at the bottom I'm going to have a pagination I've just defined. Then right and left, of course, going to be nil. then we can include the list container. Then I'm going to have here, but now I'm just going to make it nil. That's where we'll add our search later on. And I want us to visualize, because we've written so much code and we haven't visualized it. So let's do it. Okay, we're getting an error. Main.gov 53 list wrapper 53 main.gov 53. What is missing here? Let me see what could be the problem. Returning a nil pointer. User.go 82 no result label. Oh, we've not defined the no result label, so I'm just going to add it. Let me see, list container. Let me add it here. Okay, and let's run our code again. Forgot to display it. So let's come back to the users again and still getting the same error. Let me see. 82 no result label. Let's do this. Let me try. Let me try hiding it initially, then see. So we can say no result label. Then we have not defined, we just initialized it here. Did we initialize? Yeah, we initialized it, but we haven't used it here. Okay, let's try doing that now. Then we can say widget new label, and then we can say maybe results found. Okay, and then we can just say no results. Results label hide. Initially, of course, it's going to be hidden. A new variable, because we have already initialized it. Okay, let me see. I hope this works. Okay, it's not working. User.go 42. Let me see, 42, the go function. Search. I know the search is what is bringing issues. Okay, let's add the search, because we've initialized it. Let's add the search functionality. And we can say search entry. It's a widget. New entry. Then search entry. And let's placeholder and say search by name. We don't have a function to search here, so we can add it now. So we're going to search by name, okay, username. or full name, whatever. You can search using both. It's going to say search user, and then we can add, let's say, text. It's going to be a string. Then we supply the window. It's going to be a Fyne.window. Then we have models.user. Was supposed to return that. Copy this. Okay, the collection. Then I have to supply the search pattern. .m. Okay, of course here we are going to use regex. Yes, this one you can get it from the docs, of course. Supply the text. Then I want it to ignore case. Okay, so that if the user types case, doesn't matter. The options, I'm just going to say I, so that the user types case, capital letters, it won't matter, it's still fine. And then we have to supply the filter. What's the filter that's going to be used to filter those users? Okay, and in my case, I'm going to use two fields. Okay, fields. It's going to search username and full name. Okay. Okay. Going to have username, so that if you type for the username, you'll be able to find you for your username. If you have to search for the full name, it will be able to find you as well. The full name. That's the filter. Then we're going to find. Okay, let's come up here. Just copy this. Maybe this one. Okay. The collection.find. By deferring that, and then we can come here, save our results. This is going to be models.user. Then you can just call results, and then eventually going to return results. Okay, more. Ongesha vile. Kumbe ongesha. Nawe nasikia kama mwanangu yuko background hapo. Niko poa. Oh, ai mwana kwa fiti, unaona? Ai bado tunasikia. Sasa ya. Especially for the ndio follow. Ningefollow hata ningeamua kufollow emails kesho pia nito. Okay, so we return the users, and then when we are finding, we have to supply the field. Supply the field, and then I can come back to the users again, and then search entry as the placeholder. Then I have to add the button now. Yes, I'm going to use an icon. It's going to say theme search icon. I'm going to supply the function. So new button with icon. Yep. Then now we have the search text. Then we can set search entry dot text. We have to grab the search text, and then we have to say if search text is not equal to empty. Okay. We're going to get the search results. It's going to be utils dot search users. Then we have to supply the search text along with the window. And then we have to update no results label. Then we're going to set the current page to 1. Then we have to update the user list. Okay. So I have to handle the else case. I'm going to say the search results nil. And then the current page goes to 1. Then you have to update the user list as well. Okay, so we have to now add the search button. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to say search container, because it's supposed to be at the top entire view. Search container, because it's going to be 2 grids, the search entry and the search box. So it's going to be a container. In my case, of course, I'm going to make it a layout of 2 grid layout dot new grid with columns. It's going to be 2 columns. I'm going to say the search entry, the search button. Okay. Now You have to add the search container to view. So I'm going to add it. Where am I going? It has to be at the top of everything. User. You can add it here. Let's see. Search container. Now let's see. It's going to work. Yeah, let me log in. Wow, everything is working fine. Page 1 of 3. Now we have a problem here. Error in Fyne call thread. This should have been called in a Fyne.do. Okay, so 26. 76, 76, 76, 76. What is in 76? I know this is causing an error because of, it's because it's not been safely updated, so it has to be locked in. So maybe I can find out. Don't I think it's because of this algorithm issues with this thing. So let me just grab, let's say, let me grab this section here. Let's say it's 76, 75, 73, 6, even 66, 65. What? 31, 130. Okay, let's come back to Paka 65. Wait a minute. Let me see. 53. Let me just grab this. Then we can say it's going to be a function so that we can safely run the UI updates. It's working. Okay, but we have a problem here. Have a problem. The initial page size is 1. Okay, let's make it 5 and see how it looks like. One of 3. Why is it still saying 1 of 3? Because we only have 3 users, so we shouldn't be having 3, but the thing updated. I think this total pages is where the issue is coming from. Okay, I think I'll have to debug this and get back, but so far everything is working fine. So see you in the next video.